the voice of ESG.
Welcome to a new episode of the Voice of ESG podcast, in which the topic of ESG is discussed from different perspectives. I'm your host, Ruben Harding, and in today's episode, we are going to discuss two topics that have been changing the business landscape tremendously, ESG and technology. We'll dive into how technology and ESG interrelate, how technology can be leveraged in ESG reporting and data management, and hopefully we'll provide some perspective into what the future has in store for companies. I will do that with the help and expert opinion of two of my colleagues, Trish Beltran from the US and Abdel Amrani, one of my Dutch colleagues. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the podcast, especially you, Trish. I know with the time difference, it is very early for you. But before we continue with the subject matter, could you please introduce yourselves? And I will give the word to Trish.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everybody. Trish Beltran, manager in RSM US ESG advisory practice.
Then my other guest, Abdel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Ruben.
Good that you could join.
Yes. As you, I'm part of the business consulting team. And within the business consulting team, I am a technology consulting manager. And in that respect, I'm also linked with ESG and supporting our clients with ESG and technology. So that can be how do you use technology to monitor and report on ESG, but as well as how can you use technology to become more efficient and therefore more sustainable and lowering your carbon emission, as for an example. So that's a little bit my background and role within our team. So very excited about this topic.
As you might have noticed, normally this podcast is hosted by Jem, but last podcast that I was a guest, I had a genius idea of suggesting on doing a podcast on ESG and technology. So here I am hosting this podcast, loving it so far. But let's get to the subject at hand. Individually, ESG and technology are already really hard to grasp for some companies, seeing that they're both rapidly developing and both involve a plethora of different topics. A lot of companies are developing technology and ESG strategies and are investing handsomely in it. Still, what we see is that a lot of companies, these subjects are seen as two separate topics and are dealt with independently. Now, for us as consultants, it's becoming more and more apparent that you need to integrate data management and technology and emerging technology when dealing with ESG. But in what way, Trish, do you see technology and ESG complementing each other?
Yeah, so you've actually already said a couple of the different areas in which we see them complementing each other. But just to kind of reinstate some of those, one is definitely that technology can enable that better data collection and analysis. So it makes it easier for companies to measure and track their ESG performance. The second thing is that it facilitates transparency and accountability so that the stakeholders can actually access and verify that ESG information that's being reported and just captured. And then lastly, I think I'd like to point out the emerging technologies like AI and blockchain that can enhance supply chain traceability. So really giving that opportunity to track and verify the sustainability of your products, enhancing responsible sourcing, reduction of environmental impact, and ensuring compliance with ethical labor practices. So I think just with all of these different thought process and scenarios from what we have today and what's just coming and emerging, there's definitely a lot of ways in which technology and ESG are complementing each other.
Do you already see questions from clients on ESG and using technology to leverage for their ESG initiatives already, Trish? Or is it more that you as a consultant see it?
No, 100%. I would say that technology has different platforms as you know, or I guess as we all know. And so they're really looking at it as which point of the process would it make sense for them to integrate technology to enhance and automate whatever it is they're looking into. So it might seem far off when I had mentioned blockchain, but actually there are already technology platforms that are out there that is leveraging that blockchain technology. And I've seen the demos of those and I've seen them at client sites as well, where they're debating if that's something that they would like to instill, because customers, investors are demanding for that supply chain transparency. So it definitely is being used in the market. I think one that's a little bit more basic in terms of technology that is being leveraged is the reporting tools, because there's all this push in wanting to publish an ESG report. So that is one that I have seen, and I've also assisted clients in implementing ESG reporting software so that they can aggregate all of the data that they would like to capture and report at the end of the day.
Yeah, so the need of the client is a little bit more on the reporting side at this point. But Abdel, from your experience, what other aspects of a company's ESG journey can the use of technology really have great benefits?
First of all, before that I can really answer that question, I think that we also need to take one step back, and that is the complexity of ESG. And the complexity of new legislation, new requirements, new reporting procedures. That already is a very complex situation because companies, organizations, departments are working in a certain way for the last period. So changing that, adding an additional layer of administrative burden, if I may call it that way, to an organization is already leading to process complexity. Mm-hmm. And if we then break it down to technology, our clients are, or what we see is organizations already struggle with reporting on the traditional figures, the financial figures. Yep. We see that there is a lack of resources, a lack of technology implemented correctly. And then we add an additional ESG layer on top of that, which makes it even more complex as it already was. So it has a couple of dimensions. First, you have to have your strategy in place. Secondly, you have to ensure that your organization is ready to move forward on ESG initiatives. And then thirdly, if everything is set up correctly and everybody knows his responsibility, people know the processes, that's the moment to look at technology and how you use that. And in that specific occasion, I think it has two dimensions. So the first dimension is you need to report and monitor on ESG progress. And the second part is you can use technology to become more sustainable, more social, and have better governance within your organization. So then we are already talking about how do you use technology to become better as an organization.
Mm-hmm. Would you, Trish, have an example on how technology or innovative solutions can be leveraged to actually improve the ESG initiatives of or performance of clients?
Yeah, so we actually created what we called the Total Return on Investment platform. And what that does is it's a scenario analysis tool, and it helps company prioritize these ESG initiatives so that they know which they would like to implement and execute. Because one of the main questions that we feel that we're hearing at the base layer in terms of what are the challenges in which how to really determine which initiatives they should be executing, implementing, or thinking through is that we need to recognize, or we know, I guess, is that companies have finite resources, right? So the fact of that matter is that they will need to make difficult decisions knowing the financial impacts that might have on these sustainability initiatives that they're weighing. So that total return on investment platform really assists them in being able to analyze the initiatives that they would like to put in place that could have an impact on those ESG factors, and also giving you that common denominator that allows you to really take into that topic and weighing out those initiatives. One of the ways that we've seen it being used is at a client side where they input all the different external inputs that they're looking into, one of which is an ESG score and what might be something that they're understanding that they need to apply into their next year of fiscal budget and all that stuff. We assisted them by implementing the scenario analysis tool and then gave all the different scenarios, 3 scenarios in total. One, just the environmental aspect. Second, just maybe the social initiatives. And then lastly, within that fiscal year budget. And they were able to have a healthy discussion on what actually makes sense all the while also understanding what ESG impacts those initiatives will have. And at the end of the day, which actually we'll make a case study out of, so more to come in a published article later, is that it actually ended up raising their ESG score as well. So I think it was a little bit of a win-win in just being able to navigate all these different external sources that ESG has been pressuring companies in terms of being able to just execute, implement, think through, and all those items.
Did it also have an effect on their financial performance, seeing to basically scenario planning for cost reduction?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's been in year 1, so I'm sure we're going to go back and see what that impact had looked like. But there has definitely been many studies in which once implementing sustainability practices or sustainable practices, you're able to be more efficient with your process, thereby giving you those increased financial returns.
So what I hear that technology can actually really benefit when a company has finite resources, or it can actually really help you in reducing costs. But then, Abdel, in your experience, what are the key challenges that companies are facing when integrating technology in their ESG initiatives? And also maybe some possible ways to overcome that?
A good question, Ruben. I think, Trish, I think you can confirm that. Currently, how we always look at technology and implementing technology and using technology in business is that it should always support the business and not the other way around. So that's also the same with ESG. So if your foundation, your strategy is clear, you know what your goals are, the processes are in place, then technology can add an additional value on that if you implement it correctly. What we see as the biggest challenges with our clients is first topic, data quality. As we have all maybe heard, garbage in, garbage out. So if the data quality is not where it should be, then how can you report and how can you rely on your data? And reporting on ESG and progressing on ESG, that is always, not always, but it's based on the data that you extract out of your organization. You make decisions based on that. But if the foundations of your decisions is not where it should be, then you'll also have some missteps and you will have challenges along the way. The second point is security. We already see a lot of cyber attacks on financial data, customer data, important company data. And that will also be the same for ESG data. It tells us a lot. It tells us in the environment where we move, in the market where we are, the stakeholders that are connected to our organization. And securing that data will also be very important to keep everybody on board on the whole ESG journey. That's hopefully an issue that will resolve itself. That's the third one. That's the skilled resources. What we now see in the market is organizations, they want resources related to ESG, so their own personnel related to ESG. They need to know everything. So they need to know a lot about technology, reporting, implementing, but also the policies and the strategy towards the future. So it will be a challenge to maintain the high request that we see in the market for the personnel that they are looking at.
Okay. But what I hear in your answer as well, you're saying garbage in, garbage out. And you're also saying that basically technology can assist the business activities that you already have in the process, but it's not really the holy grail that it will fix.
Yeah.
Because is that maybe a question to you, Trish? That's pretty much a misconception on what technology then can offer for your ESG initiatives. What are some other misconceptions that you've come across with your clients about the interrelation between ESG and technology, or what technology can do for ESG?
Yeah, so I think great points, Abdel. I would just maybe summarize really into that one main common misconception is that technology alone can solve all ESG challenges. That's what I think some folks think, just because, the technology is smarter than I, faster than I, maybe let's just plug it in there. So I totally agree with that whole garbage in, garbage out. So what I was mentioning earlier with the different areas in the process, different technology platforms, will know that there's not one technology, not one size fits all type of mentality in this space. So think through that while technology is a powerful enabler, it's important to remember that it's just one component of a comprehensive ESG strategy. So I believe in process-led technology implementations, and that companies should have a process in place before looking to a solution to enable that automation of that process. And so thinking through ESG initiatives for them to be effective, you need to think about a holistic approach that then combines that technology with cultural and organizational changes, which again, Abdel, to your point, totally agree on that.
Yeah, so it should be a part, but it's not the holy grail. It's not the part. It's not going to solve everything.
Yeah, it's like a house without a foundation. It will not work.
Then maybe moving on to ESG reporting and data management. As we said, garbage in, garbage out. I like that's becoming a central theme now of this podcast. A lot of regulations are coming in the US, of course, from the SEC, but here in the European Union with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and also the upcoming Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. They will have major implications on the non-financial information disclosure or the ESG information disclosure that companies have. We talked about it not being the holy grail, but how can technology then assist companies in collecting, analyzing, and reporting on ESG data more effectively, Abdel?
That's technology can definitely support companies. So the first point that I would like to discuss is automated data collection. So if all procedures are in place and if the process is set up in a way where, let's say, the data is reliable, then you can unburden your organization by automating the data collection and the whole processing of your data and the monitoring of your ESG KPIs with the use of technology. So how I always give a very simple explanation. So we all process incoming invoice. So all our clients, they receive invoices from their vendors. Mm-hmm. So let's say that you now receive a utility bill from your energy company. Now you have a couple of ESG data on that electricity bill or the energy bill that you receive. So it can be, if your process is set up in a way where you have to fill in the ESG relevant data into your system, into the system that you use for your reporting and your monitoring, then you have a step in your process which has a risk because somebody has to do something manually. We have OCR technology where you can recognize certain data on paper, which you then can extract into the system.
You call it OCR technology?
OCR, yeah.
Can you explain that for our listeners? Because I'm in the dark right now, to be honest.
So OCR it's like optical recognition software. So the software itself can recognize what data there is on on paper or in a file, and extract that into a system and then process it further. So instead of filing it in manually, the system knows, okay, this data is important and I need to extract that from the utility bill in this situation. So by automating this step in your process, you eliminate manual intervention and you lower the risk of polluting your system with the incorrect data. So that's already something very small that you can do because we already use that. A lot of organizations already use that software in their whole financial processing, in their financial administration. So why not use it for ESG? And we can do a lot if we just look at it differently. If we add certain elements, certain ESG elements to already existing financial processes, but you can have all types of processes.
So would it then be fair to say that a lot of companies already have not all, but a lot of ESG data within the process that they have, the data management process that they have, they are just not really able to recognize that they have it and then extract it.
For me, Ruben, this is the starting point. We already know a lot, and the data is already there, but we are now not extracting it, or we are now not looking at it from an ESG perspective. So that's a little bit the change that we need to make as a business community to really handle and get a grasp on ESG reporting. And if the more difficult we make it, and the more complex the story is towards the clients and towards stakeholders and everybody that's involved in ESG and that would like to push this further, the more difficult it is to really progress on it. So what I like to do is make it very small, keep it very close to your current way of working. And these are the first improvements that you can make very easily, and then take it step by step towards a more sustainable future.
So basically a mindset change is needed to see what you can extract, and then also incremental changes on what you're already doing as a company.
Yeah, right. The right incentives to do the right thing, I think.
Trish, on the other side of the ocean, have you seen some other innovative solutions for ESG reporting and data management?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of thoughts to that. So, two, I'm going to cover quickly around the data management piece of it. And that really is just more of how you look at your data or how you're gathering that data. So one, I think we already briefly mentioned at the beginning of this podcast really is that use of the distributed and decentralized ledger technologies, aka blockchain, so that we can enhance that transparency and traceability. But the second thing, while it might not seem that innovative, I do think using and leveraging data visualization tools and interactive dashboards is another way to be able to look at your data so that you can manage it more appropriately if you're gathering real-time items or where you might have gaps into whatever you're collecting. And it's a way to present that ESG information in a user-friendly and engaging manner to maybe even get more of a stakeholder buy-in within the company, or even just understanding that data that you're gathering, at which point you'll be reporting. But the last thing that I wanted to mention in terms of the reporting aspect is, again, back to the analysis and maybe driving what you might be reporting on. There's this innovative technology that I've seen, and for those who probably know this a little better, it's just called NLP, but really it's the natural language processing. So just a quick definition of that. That's a branch of AI that focuses on interaction between computers and human language. So some ways that I've actually seen this, and I just came from a technology conference, is that they apply this to a technology where you can analyze large volumes of unstructured data, such as ESG reports, news articles, whatever relevant information, and it helps identify trends. So whatever that is. So one that I thought was pretty different from the others is sentiment analysis. So applying NLP techniques, you're able to analyze what is the sentiment expressed in that ESG related text. So that helps that company understand what might be the public perception, knowing that ESG is taking into consideration that external stakeholder point of view. And so on having this and seeing the analysis from this sentiment analysis helps the company understand what is the sentiment towards their sustainability initiatives that they're trying to put forth. So one quick tiny thing, I guess, just to help visualize it a little bit more. So let's say you put in a news article or you put in other text or links, it'll analyze that and it'll automatically classify if that text is positive, negative, or neutral. And then it helps you understand, what is your stakeholder attitudes as it relates to the effectiveness of how you're communicating your ESG strategies.
Can you also do it on a meta level that you can say, for example, you're a company within the meat industry and you want to really see what are the reactions to some of these societal problems that comes along with the meat industry? Can you then input a lot of articles and then see what the sentiment is and how that is changing?
Yes. So they employ that use of data visualization from the analysis of the sentiment, and you can actually pick out a topic and have a trend analysis say if it is growing in its sentiment of positive reaction or negative reaction. And the other items that you can do on that as well is it summarizes that analysis for you so that you can get a better understanding of really what is happening and what's being discussed in that specific topic, industry, or market.
Yeah, they can also basically see where the market or that topic is headed, which basically brings me into the next segment about the future perspectives. I personally believe that ESG and successful entrepreneurship is about being able to look ahead to what is coming in the future and play into the opportunities that these can provide. So let's do that for a little bit. How do you see the relationship between technology and ESG evolving in the coming years for businesses?
Yes, so in the coming years, I think that we can expect the relationship between technology and ESG to become even more intertwined. Technology will continue to play that pivotal role in enhancing ESG practices by providing better data insights that we've mentioned all throughout this podcast, facilitating real-time monitoring, enabling more accurate measurement of impact, and also all the different advancements that we're seeing across those different technologies in areas such as AI and machine learning. That'll enable more sophisticated ESG analytics, predictive modeling, the sentiment analysis that I just mentioned earlier. And really overall, all of the emerging technologies will enable a greater level of data connectivity and enable companies to better manage and report their ESG performance.
I think that ESG will also push innovation. So we're already seeing it in the Netherlands with the farmers and everything that is currently going on. So there we see that there are some sustainability or environmental legislation coming up, and that really pushes a certain sector to move towards a more sustainable future. And then, it's easy to classify that as ESG, or it has an ESG impact. But what I always find very fascinating is organizations and people, we innovate quicker and better in case that there is an urge, and in this situation it is ESG, because that's really urging us to have a different view at the world and therefore increase innovation.
I actually think that ESG as that term is missing a tiny letter, and that is I, because I completely agree with you that it drives innovation and will just continue to have everybody thinking through what are the innovative approaches, technologies to really tackle ESG as a whole, or even when they've implemented it, what then will they do with all of this analysis and data at their hands, and what can they do to further the business and making them more sustainable or whatever it may be?
So you always have these technology hypes. I think 3 to 5 years ago, I was in a blockchain seminar every other week because blockchain was going to change the world. It's going to make it more transparent. There's no supply chain issues anymore. No need for financial institutions. But right now, if you guys would have to put your money on one of the technologies that are going to be the most transformative in the market. So leave ESG behind for one sec. Just in the market in general for businesses the next 10 years, which technology would it be?
AI.
Okay. So both of you think AI will have the biggest impact. Abdel, can you please elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. So the last couple of months, I went down the rabbit hole of AI and generative AI, more specifically. And Trish just mentioned using AI for ESG. We are currently, or NLP, using that for ESG perspectives. We are currently also experimenting on that. So what we see is, to make it quite simple, is in the databases that we see now and accessing data that's all done based on what's normally done is based on structured data. So you have to have a data warehouse, then everything needs to be labeled, sorted out, and then you have to find your way around the data warehouse to get the data that you need in a specific situation. So with NLP, with generative AI, we see that whole data warehouse is not needed anymore. So if we can access that data and we can connect it to generative AI. We can see things quicker, earlier. The whole maintenance costs will reduce in the future as well. So this will have a major impact on the disruptive impact on the market as well on ESG. So we as RSM, we are experimenting in this specific topic. So hopefully in the upcoming period we can provide our clients also services to help them on this part as well.
There's a lot of talk, of course, about the impact that AI will have, but also like more negative impacts. So what do you see as ethical considerations with the rise of AI that you have to deal with as a company, but maybe as society as a whole, Trish?
Yeah, so especially in the realm of ESG, we do have to think through these ethical considerations for these emerging technologies. So for AI specifically, I would think that the questions that we're hearing or that are arising is really regarding that data privacy piece of it all. And then also understanding the data that's being inputted into these technologies so that they can have that AI function. Well, we need to go behind the scenes and figure out, are there any algorithmic bias? And then once the use of this technology, there's also been fear of potential job displacement. So I think there's just a lot of different items between, one, understanding this technology and how it works, and then secondly, what will then happen in the use of this technology. So I think that it's really crucial for us to ensure that these AI systems that we're developing, using, are transparent and accountable and built on those diverse and unbiased data sets. And then once we use this technology, and I think just like any other technology that has enhanced or automated processes, I don't think we should look at it as a job displacement, but more of an opportunity to do something of more value into your role. So if AI or if the technology prior was doing a lot of the, data input type of process, now you have the ability to be the analysis of that data that's being captured and provide insights or, provide perspective on what you think is a good decision based on that data. So same thing with AI. While it's generating maybe one of the, smaller tasks it might be, so now what do you do with this faster generated data set that's in front of you? And how will then you apply that to take this opportunity to really provide your perspective on how you would like to move things forward faster? And then I do just want to talk a little bit about the blockchain as well. And I think, Ruben, you mentioned that you were in a cohort maybe a couple years back. I think I was in one as well. So I don't know if we were in the same one, but it was also a weekly 1 hour or so discussion about blockchain. And I think while all of that was a rise in a talk, it took about the same type of topics as to why people were feeling a little bit hesitant to that technology. And I think that's what we're seeing with the AI piece as well, is back to that concern of privacy, because both of these technologies enable that transparency and enhanced connection. And so what we just need to know is that for the blockchain piece of it, what's essential, and I think they're really figuring it out, is that balance between transparency and privacy rights.
Just a last question to wrap up. Say, for example, I'm a business leader. I'm just starting my ESG initiatives. What then would you recommend to me in terms of how to use technology in the best way?
Follow the right path. So what does that mean? Start by the basics. What's important in your branch? What's important there? What's your strategy? What's your view on ESG? And then how do you get your whole organization on board? And once once all the noses are in the right direction, then you can very easily implement your technology, because then you know where you're coming from, you know what you need to report, and you know where you want to go to. So then only choosing the right tool to use in that journey and to help you with that journey then it will help you to maximize or to optimize your journey. But it's not the other way around. So there is no technology that will give you all the right ESG reportings and help you on all ESG matters. That's an utopia. So yes, I think that's start with a foundation. Where are you now? Where do you want to be, and how do you get there? And then along the road, you will have to get the questions related to technology will pop up, and then you will have a better insight on what do I need, what does my organization need, what do I need for the future.
I do love that one-liner, follow the right path, and then also consider garbage in, garbage out. That would be a good way to summarize this podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining and for giving your expert opinion, and that brings us to the end.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Thank you very much.